The floor is yours.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come speak to you all today about financial literacy. I'm really excited and think we'll learn some good things. So I'm going to dive right in here. What is financial literacy? Um, at its most basic, it is knowing how to manage your money well, what to do with money, and how to make it work for you. It's more than simply financial education. That's kind of the first piece. You can see in the graphic knowledge. It's one thing to have the knowledge, but another to be disciplined with your behavior and put it into action. So, money is one of those things that is a tool that can help you or hurt you. It's neither good or bad in and of itself. It's something that you can utilize to achieve your goals in life. Um, for a lot of people, money can be a negative thing. If you mismanage it, it can cause you a lot of stress or anxiety in your life. But when you manage it well, it's again something you can use to achieve your goals and dreams in life. To be a little bit cheesy, but whether it's something like you want to go to college, hopefully, if you want to own a house one day, if you want to travel the world and go to a lot of different cities and countries and have experiences, even if you want to do good in the world and contribute to charity and helping others. These are all things that money can fuel. So financial literacy, then it's something where you take knowledge and skills. The goal again is to affect your core attitudes and beliefs, so that you can make the right decisions when it comes to money. In our country, we see a lot of people with debt. We had the Great Recession that began in 2008. Financial markets crashed, housing market crashed. And in recent years, people began to question the value of just acquiring a lot of material possessions at the expense of financial security and freedom. In other words, what good is it to have a lot of stuff if you're in a lot of debt and it's keeping you up at night, affecting your physical and mental health? So, again, it starts from just making the right choices, and it can be such a major part of your life for good or bad. So that's why it's important to learn about it at an early age and begin putting these things into practice now. So today we're going to talk about 5 core competencies of financial literacy. We're actually going to talk about the first 4 of these. The 5th one, protecting, I'm not going to get into. It's a little bit outside the scope of the presentation. Essentially, that's covering things like being aware of fraud and scams that are out there, identity theft, being able to protect yourself and your assets from those kinds of things. So we won't get into that. It's definitely a good topic to read into. Maybe that could be a follow-up presentation at some point. It also covers things like insurance, car insurance, home insurance, basically protecting both your money and the things you own from loss. So that's kind of what that piece is in a nutshell, but won't get into that. We're going to hit on the first 4 today. All right. So the first step when it comes to money management is you have to get money. That's earning here refers to bringing money home. For most people, that is in the form of a paycheck from a job. It can also be self-employment, being an entrepreneur, and returns on various investments. So it doesn't have to just be a job. And we'll kind of talk about being an entrepreneur in the next slide a little bit. When it comes to working a job and bringing home a paycheck, I wanted to kind of just touch on gross income versus net income. We talked about this in trivia, actually, and y'all are able to mostly get that one right, I think. Gross income, the important thing here is like if you get a job that is the salary is $60,000 a year, that's not what you're actually going to be getting to spend. Or if you get a job and you notice your paycheck is going to be $2,000 every paycheck, that's not actually what's going to be on the check when you get it. The deductions that happen that make it before it becomes net income is taxes first and foremost. There's federal income tax and state income tax, which can differ depending on the state. Some states actually don't have state income tax. So those are few, but there are a few. And then also things like your health insurance comes out of your paycheck for most people. That's an optional thing, but for most Americans, it's health insurance is something that's provided through your employer. So I have my health insurance, my dental insurance, my vision insurance, since I wear glasses. It all comes out of my paycheck every pay period, every 2 weeks. So, it can take 28 to 30% on average for most people of their gross income and taxes and other deductions. So that's kind of I think mine is 25%. I figured it out at one point. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking at different pay rates on jobs in the future. And I also wanted to hit on determining future potential earnings. Essentially what this means is for y'all, if you're thinking about college, just fully understanding what jobs are going to pay, how much they're going to pay. It's not to say you shouldn't pursue your passion in life. The sweet spot, of course, is to find the career path that's going to be something that you're going to love doing and is also going to be able to provide for your financial needs. It's definitely easier said than done, but there are jobs out there. And so just, taking your time, asking questions, exploring different career tracks before choosing a major in college, or even potentially choosing which college to go to. It's just important to think about, how much will this job be bringing in for me? Because college is expensive, just full disclosure, and it's only continued to get more expensive with each year. And so it's an investment you're making for your future. And so you want to make sure that you get a return on your investment and that, it's going to lead to a successful career path for you. So I'll mention for myself personally, I have a degree in music technology, and here I am working at a credit union in the financial industry. And I'm actually at this point working in software development at the credit union that I work at. It's worked out well for me. I've ended up in technology. I'm not working with music specifically, but once I graduated, I was kind of like, there weren't that many career paths. This is something that I could have done better looking in hindsight. So I think it's really important to kind of weigh the two, because the career options were kind of limited with that degree, and it worked out for me. But there are definitely times I look back and think, man, I wish I got a software development degree or computer science degree, because it's something I really enjoy now, and I've been fortunate not to get trapped in a job that I dislike. But for a lot of people, that unfortunately ends up being the case. So, just want to really stress to take the time to consider it, because you want to set yourself up for success and not be regretting decisions you make later on. So just, it's important to take the time and just consider all the different options that are there for you. All right. So this is kind of a fun slide. This was Mr. Kim's suggestion, actually, to have something on entrepreneurship. So again, having a job is the main way that people are producing income for themselves. But, creativity is, I think, an awesome thing to explore here. Mr. Kim provided this graphic here of a gumball machine with face masks. And I thought this was a really cool idea. So, being creative, thinking outside the box, is one way that you could produce income for yourself. These Etsy photos that I have here on the left, so it's actually a friend of mine's shop. She does pottery, so she actually makes these things from scratch herself, forms the clay, does the designs. Super cool, super well made. I'm giving her a little bit of free advertising here. If you go onto Etsy, you can go to this website. But she has another job that she does, but I think she makes a good bit of money here, and it's a business. It's running her own business, and it's done some commissions for coffee shops, and it's continuing to grow. So there's a lot of avenues today online that you can kind of be a self-starter and take advantage of some of the opportunities that technology allows. There's a lot of ways on the internet to kind of pursue your passion and make some money doing it. For me, I'm a musician, and in my free time, I mentioned I have a music technology degree. I've done different things. I've had different streams of income in the past as a result of that. I've done piano lessons. I've recorded and produced music for other musicians. I've written music, composed music. So it's been great to still be able to pursue that passion and still bring in some income. So just consider your skills and what things your interests are. And I mean, these days there's a lot of different ways to apply your skills, and yeah, don't be afraid to try something new, I guess is what I wanted to kind of get across with this. All right, this one is a bit of a fun bit here. So Mr. Kim, he mentioned my history at the credit union, and I did start there in 2010. Prior to that, I'd spent 5 years working at a Johnny Rockets restaurant. So this is not a photo of me, but it very well could have been a photo of me. This dude here in the middle doing his little dance in his little outfit. This was my life. So the reason I put this in here is I started working when I was 16. Again, I spent 5 years, so throughout high school and college, I was working at this job. I was a waiter, and I made a good bit of money, and eventually was able to purchase a house, my first house, at the age of 24. Due in large part to working this job. It was not glamorous. It was sometimes stressful. You may be wondering why I have respect at the top here. You might be wondering, is he asking us to respect his life decisions? No, not necessarily. Having a bit of fun here with it. I don't know how you could necessarily respect someone in an outfit as goofy as this. We had to do all these dances, as you can see. The people here are in the photo are dancing, and one of them was Aretha Franklin's "Respect." Anytime someone come on, we had to break out in the dance. There's all these hand motions. I've kind of tried to block it out of my memory. It's too traumatic. Being a bit facetious, it really wasn't that bad, but I do want to get across the point that it wasn't a cushy job or a glamorous job. It was long days. You're on your feet a lot. You had to do some things that might be kind of embarrassing if you're particularly if you're more of an introverted person like myself. But there were sometimes I'd work a 10-hour shifts, and I would make $200 in cash tips. $20 an hour for a 16-year-old was pretty great. I just tried to save as much as possible, and I eventually had a down payment for my first house, and due in large part to working this job. And I learned a lot of life skills too. Worked with a lot of different people, made some friends, learned to work with the public, customer service, things that helped me get my first job as a teller at the credit union, handling cash. They were skills that helped me get my foot in the door at the credit union. I now made a career there. So,
Mr. Roland, so you bought your first house at what age?
24.
Okay, so do you remember how much you paid for your house?
Yes. So I bought that house in 2012. So it was kind of near the tail end of the recession, but I bought it for half price. I was fortunate there. I bought it for $90,000. I say half price. It had sold for $180 in 2006 before the recession. So,
still live in that house right now?
No. Actually, I sold the house in 2018, so about 3.5 years ago.
How much do you sell for?
So this is the great part. I sold the house for $220. So if you speak of return on investment, I made $130,000 profit on that house.
Is that all? That's just profit, right?
Correct. Yes. And I moved and bought another house and was able to buy. I live in the city of Atlanta now, and I bought in a neighborhood that there was probably no way I would have been able to afford if I hadn't made those earlier decisions. So it's just to kind of show the chain reaction. Me working at Johnny Rockets helped me buy that first house, and now I live in a place that I really have wanted to live for nearly 10 years, and had not been able to afford it. So playing the long game, I guess, is the the takeaway there. And like I said, I bought at the end of the recession, so I was fortunate there. But you want to make the right decisions early so you can be prepared when an opportunity like that comes around, for sure. Move on here. So saving and investing, this is the second core competency. Really, you want to have a savings account and a checking account at a financial institution, a bank or a credit union. Savings is just where you put your money. Checking is, you have a debit card linked to the checking account. That's what you can use at the store to access your money. I won't get into banks and credit unions. The difference is too much. Just credit unions are banks. We're not for profit. So the theory is that we can provide better service or lower fees, better interest rates because we're not for profit, whereas banks are for profit companies. But there's plenty of good banks. I'm not going to badmouth them. I have products at other banks as well as the credit union that I work for. There's a lot of good community banks. I like to support local companies as much as possible, just as a personal kind of preference in life. So I would always recommend a credit union. I think Delta Community is great, but there's other great credit unions and community banks too. Just, kind of look around. Ask your parents. I'm sure they have bank accounts too, and kind of see what their experience is. They might say, "Oh, I hate my bank," and you can say, "Well, look in a Delta Community." But yeah, just kind of look around and just. But you want to have a savings and checking account. Don't be keeping your money under your mattress or anything like that. Saving early, though, I really want to hit on this. I've kind of talked about it a little bit, but save money grows over time due to interest. And I'll talk about compound interest here in just a second. But one thing I wanted to kind of throw out here, if you've never really saved money, a great way to start, it's called the 52-week money challenge. It's an incremental savings plan. Makes it easy to get started and save money consistently throughout the year. It's pretty simple. You save $1 the first week, save $2 the second week, $3 the third week, and so on. Last week of the year, you're going to be putting $52 into your savings account. So by the end of the 52 weeks, by the end of the year, you have saved $1,378, almost $1,400. And you've gotten there just by increasing it a little bit as you go. So something to try out if you never have saved money before. Yeah, compound interest, say free money here. Compound interest is, simply put, it's interest on interest. So you put money into the bank, you earn interest each month, but then like the second month, you're going to earn interest on the interest that you earned the first month. So you can put, $100 into the bank and you just leave it. It's going to grow because of the interest you're earning, and then you're earning interest on the interest you've already earned. So this graphic, I think, is a good illustration of this. Jack in orange, he starts saving $200 a month at age 21. He does that every month, every year for 9 years until he turns 30. Stops investing altogether. At that point, he's invested $21,000. If he doesn't invest another dime, by the time he turns 68 years old and wants to retire, he'll have, $2.5 million. How is that possible? How do you turn $21,000 into $2.5 million? It's the beauty of compound interest. In this particular example, he has his funds in a mutual fund account that's earning 11.6%. That may seem high, but it's one of the options out there for investing. We don't have time to get into all that today, but yeah, again, main takeaway here is save early. Start saving early and let your money grow. All right. Spending, just want to talk about budgeting here and the lifestyle creep. Spending is probably the most important concept because it's a personal reflection of your lifestyle and your financial behavior. So differentiating between needs and wants is the basic concept of controlling spending. Knowing where your money is going is what budgeting is. Deciding where you're going to spend your money. There's a lot of different options for how to do this. I mean, you could do it on pen and paper, jot out how much you're spending each month on certain things. There's online apps that are good for this. The credit union I work for, our online banking has a built-in budgeting app. It just tells you based on your debit card activity where you're spending your money. How much you spend at the grocery store, gas, or restaurants. There's other ones like Mint.com, some others too. Just kind of look around and see what's out there. But it's important to use something. The method isn't as important as just doing it, knowing where your money is going. Lifestyle creep, you can see in the graphic here, but this can get people into trouble where, once you get a raise, you just think, okay, I can buy all these things I wanted to buy, and you instantly raise your standard of living or raise the amount of money that you're spending, and it just all goes away, and it's just a bad cycle. So if you can keep your kind of sphere of spending the same, even as you progress in your life through different jobs and different pay scales, it can help you save more, and you don't get into this vicious cycle of always, never having enough. So this was my car. I actually just got rid of this car a couple of months ago, but I bought this car, and this ties into spending just as far as budgeting goes. And I purchased this car in 2008. It was a 1999 Ford Escort, had 130,000 miles. I bought it from the original owner for $2,800, and I drove it for 13 years. Put 100,000 miles on it. It wasn't even in the best shape when I took this photo a few months ago, but you know what? It was getting me to work. It was doing what it needed to do. It was still running fine. It was just, cosmetically wasn't like what it used to be. But cars are more expensive than a lot of people realize. There's a lot of things that go into it. If you're getting a loan for a car, there's interest. You gotta consider car insurance, the gas, the maintenance, things that break down. So getting a reliable car is important, but I'm not necessarily saying you have to limit yourself to $2,800 and buy a nearly 10-year-old car necessarily, but maybe you decide your budget's $5,000, for a first car, and you're gonna maybe, get a loan for some of it and have cash for some of it. I would not recommend buying, a really expensive car. I'm going to move on just because of time, because I do want to talk about borrowing credit. This is a big one here. So here's so credit in a nutshell. You have a credit score. You actually have 3 credit scores because there's 3 bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. As you can see, it's typically between 300 to 850. Credit's important because it's, like I said, there will become, I personally am not a big fan of debt, but some purchases in life are just so large, like buying a house or even buying a car, that it's something that you need to be able to utilize. And go ahead. Credit is another thing that can really mess you up if you get into having a bad credit score. It's tough to fix a bad credit score. It's a lot easier to build credit when you don't have any and just keep it in a good state. You see the things that make up the score. Some of these things are pretty much like don't mess up. Payment history would be like don't miss payments. Capacity is don't max out credit cards. It's one of these things that's more like you don't want to make the bad decision. It's better not to have credit than to have bad credit. But at some point you do need to have a credit score, because if you want to, say, apply for a mortgage and you've never had any type of credit, you're not going to get approved because you need to have some positive history. So for people starting out, there's things, credit builder loans. We actually offer one of these at the credit union that I work for, and I've had one. It's called a deposit secured loan. For example, you would have $500 in your savings account. We would put the $500 on hold, give you a loan for $500, and then put $500 back into your savings account. So if you looked at your balances, you would have $1,000 in your savings account, but only $500 would be available to spend, and then you'd have a $500 loan. It's a little bit confusing, but essentially you're lending the money to yourself, and then you make payments on it each month. You could do it over a year, for example. And at the end of it, it looks like you've had an installment loan and you've paid it off, but you never actually had to borrow any money because the whole time you had $500 available to you that was in your savings account, and you just leave it there and just kind of pay yourself back. And it actually helps you save, because at the end of the year, you now have $1,000 in your savings account because you've been basically forcing yourself to put money into your savings account every month. So, and it helps you establish a good credit score.
So this sounds like sorry to interrupt, but this sounds like a foolproof way to not get in trouble with credit cards. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Mr. Roland, we have more than 2 minutes, but we have some kids in the building that need to pack up and leave in the next 3 to 4 minutes. So just make
totally.
them aware. So
yeah, we're running short there. So this is actually the last slide we have. So I'll just kind of burn through these points real quick, and then we'll have some space for questions. But the important thing, like you're alluding to, Mr. Kim, is if you don't have to mess with credit cards, don't even get them. Installment loans are better for your credit, and we have a point here about moving from revolving debt to installment debt. If you don't have to get into it at all, that's great enough. These points are kind of geared towards people that maybe already have them. In that case, you want to pay them down, and making payments on time is a key one. Did just want to highlight this little graphic here. This kind of shows, we're talking about buying an expensive car. $20,000 is what I would consider an expensive car, and they, of course, can be much more expensive than this. But this shows FICO score is another term for your credit score, and this kind of shows 300 being the low ones here. Based on your credit score, they give you an interest rate, and these high interest rates can really drastically affect the amount of money that you spend. This $20,000 car can cost you $30,000 if you have a credit score between 300 to 500 in this example. So that's $10,000 you're just throwing away, that's just going towards interest versus $2,000 you might spend on interest if you had a top tier credit score. So it's really important to get started on a good foot there, so you don't have to waste any money on interest. So now I kind of burned through some of this pretty fast at the end, just for the sake of time. So I definitely will open up to questions for any of y'all that are able to stay. And if you have any questions, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Kim at this point.
There was actually only one question, and you touched on it as far as that goes. If anybody wants to drop some questions in the chat, feel free to. We're going to keep going for another probably 4 or 5 minutes or so. So feel free to drop questions in the chat. If you don't have any questions, no worries. That's basically what's going on. Questions. There's zero questions, it seems. If any teachers want to ask a question, they're welcome to as well, of course. So
it may be a good sign. It may mean I hit everything in good enough detail.
Yeah.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. So I think we're sitting kind of pretty. We're doing all right. Here's what I'll do. Thank you for joining us. Couple things I told my students I would do, so I'll go ahead and touch on the 3 things I said that I would do, or the 1 thing I said that I would do, which is impart some history in here. So the first income tax in America actually started during, it's complicated, but during the Civil War, there was a income tax on anybody who made over $800 a year to fund the war, right? So that's the history of income tax, or part of the history of income tax. The stock market crash in 1929, you'll learn about that if you haven't already. A big part of the reason why that happened was, people were borrowing money to buy stocks, and it's never a good idea to borrow money to buy something that you're not sure it's going to be worth something tomorrow, right? Or worth this much tomorrow. So, and the first credit card, again, this is a complicated answer, but essentially was the Diners Club card in 1950. So I told my students I'd throw in some history in there just because, I'm going to be quizzing them